And I want to welcome everyone to the webinar that's joined at this point in time, Procurement Trends in 2022, a fresh new beginning, or of course, most of us hope so, at least. Thank you for joining me wherever you might be. Maybe you're at home or maybe you're sitting in the office, keeping an appropriate amount of distance from your nearest colleague. I appreciate you for joining me here today in this particular webinar. My name is Sam Jenks. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Kodiak Hub, and I will be your host for today's webinar. In addition, I am joined by my co-host, Charlie, the office dog. So if you hear a bark in the background, it's just Charlie adding his point of view to today's content, and he can be rather opinionated. I'm also joined by another colleague of mine, Richard Teuchler. Sorry, Richard, that you didn't get to the picture. You got bumped by Charlie here. One way or the other, Richard will be, of course, steering up some polls during today's session. That's right, interactive theater. How's that for some fun in this webinar? So keep your fingers ready. We're going to have a few polls during today's session to be able to get in some insights about what you guys think about what's going on in 2022 within procurement. Short about Kodiak Hub, for those who don't know about us, Kodiak Hub is a cloud-based supplier management suite. We're helping procurement and sourcing professionals just like you to build smarter and more sustainable supplier relationships with deeper buying insights in the form of robust ratings and analytics. Kodiak Hub provides an ecosystem of applications and modules that our users can plug and play to manage supplier information, risk, compliance, performance, and collaboration all from one place. During the course of today's webinar, you will all become more thoroughly acquainted with the Kodiak Hub solution, and of course, better understand how we can help you to tackle some of the trends in 2022 and beyond. On to the agenda for today's webinar. During the next 35 to 40 minutes, we will try and roughly cover all of these points. First and foremost, we're in the introduction and agenda as we are right now, but after that, we're going to get right into the first point for today's webinar, which is procurement, a function that is in transition, something that you guys might feel yourself. Moving into the main event for today, of course, which are the 12 procurement trends that we spotted for 2022. Mixed in during the trends will be a short product demonstration of Kodiak Hub's SRM solution to display how modern supplier management solutions could possibly help your team to meet some of the challenges that you might face in 2022. Finally, we'll save 5 minutes towards the end of the session, as I mentioned, for a Q&A session. I've already written in the chat bubble there. If you have questions that pop up during the session, don't hesitate. Jump in, at me or at Richard, and we'll try and answer those as we go along during the day's content. I hope that the feed as far as audio and visual goes is good. And without further ado, let's get into the day's content. With 2021 soon behind us, we're going to bravely walk into a new year, having a new outlook, breathing in deep breaths of hope and opportunity. But before we hurtle into the trends, the challenges, and the opportunities that await in 2022, let's briefly visit how procurement looked in 2021 to better understand the current state and also the future playing conditions. Before I provide my outlook on the state of procurement, I would love to hear from the audience, and we're going to start off right away with our first poll here. So I'm going to pause for dramatic effect and a poll, while Richard then issues the first poll, which is, which macro trend do you believe will impact procurement the most during 2022? There are 4 options on screen here. Give about 10 more seconds to be able to respond to the poll. We're going to make sure to revisit some of these aspects towards the end of the session. I'm going to actually switch my screens here. We're going to see what's going on in the chat bubble. 92%. Whoa, overwhelming. What's going on here? Sustainability. That's what it seems to be, the big trend for 2022. And I think that this is, of course, very much in line with what we've been seeing at Kodiak Hub, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have been experiencing as well within your organization. So we will definitely cover aspects related to sustainability today, and quite a few of our trends that we spotted are definitely driven by that macro trend, which is sustainability. Thanks everybody for participating in that first poll. Here we go. Then we're going to get into the next bits, which are the actual start of the presentation. And I don't know if you've heard about it or not, but of course, 2020 brought us a global pandemic in the form of COVID-19. 2021, of course, has brought us the ripple effects, supply shortages, fluctuating prices, broken supplier contracts, lack of alternative supplies, and of course, little time over for us to focus on anything but the day-to-day operations of supplier management. The pandemic was a trend that no one really spotted, and it's impacted our lives so greatly, personally and professionally. The unprecedented and unpredictable playing field caused by the pandemic, ongoing geopolitical events, and other factors have made the art of trend spotting quite ironic, really, but we're going to give it a shot here. It's likely that the aftermath of the last 2 years will continue to linger in the new year. It was found that 66% of CPOs that surveyed in the CPO Compass survey by procurement leaders that they expect supply chain volatility to persist in 2022. Oddly enough, even though supply chains will continue to be volatile, I think that there's a bit of a silver lining here. Rooted deep within the likely instability and volatility of the global supply chain, I believe remains a somewhat constant variable and a bright future for your teams within procurement, sourcing, and supply chain management. Procurement as a function will finally get the recognition that it deserves. Pressures on sustainability, risk management, productivity, and supply have highlighted the importance of procurement. Regardless of how you fared during these last 2 years, your procurement team's stock is rising in your organization and rising fast. Your procurement team has been the crutch to lean on as supply chain complexity has continued to surmount during the last 2 years. This may very well lead to a well-deserved shift of procurement's place in the broader value chain, a new beginning, a fresh start. The traditional value chain places procurement as a support activity, which we all know of, which was drafted by Michael Porter in the 80s. Procurement in transition could lead to, of course, more CPOs getting appointed to the leadership teams, capturing the attention of the board, shareholders, and potentially even increases in budget for personnel, projects, and technology. More organizational influence and money in the budget makes 2022 and beyond great years of opportunity for transformational activity. As the proverb goes, taken from the works of the late Stan Lee's Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. As procurement shifts to an increasingly central figure in the broader value chain, you guys are going to have more pressures to drive value. New pressures will bring new challenges, driving new strategies, projects, and ways of working. As I typically say, if you want to spot the trends, first identify your challenges. Therein lies the opportunity. With no further ado, I want everybody to buckle up your seatbelts, check your rear view mirrors, test your turn signals as we are ready to race off into the new year. And of course, then dive into the procurement trends of 2022 and beyond, starting with trend number 1, supply chain tier mapping. Driven by mega trends such as legislation, globalization, and sustainability, supply chain tier mapping has been a top concern and focus area during 2021 and will remain to be so a trend in 2022. As supply chain complexity grows, so does the tiers of supply networks, increasing the complexity of transparency and visibility beyond tier 1. 90% of CPOs responded in the 2020 CPO Flash survey that they have moderate to low visibility in their supply chains beyond Tier 1. Better supply chain visibility and tier mapping could have, of course, aided teams in reaction to the pandemic effects and better allocate, alternative resources, as well as then possibly foresee different disruptions. As I mentioned just a moment ago, tier mapping and transparency is also being reinforced by legislation. Lieferkettengesetz, please excuse my German there. I think that it's an okay pronunciation. In English, the Supply Chain Act is a perfect example. This is a German law that was passed in February of 2021. This law is just a drop in the sea of legislation that is enforcing a need for increased supply chain transparency and provides also a concrete example of why supply chain tier mapping will continue to be a top focus for 2022 and beyond. This act itself aims to enforce sustainable business practices within broader value chains of large German organizations. Legal requirements of this act force companies to take responsibility for their global supply chains with enhanced due diligence, corporate governance, and to have a means for reporting upon violations within various social, environmental, and financial criteria. I know that there's some people attending today from the DACH region, so I don't need to tell you guys, you're well aware of what this legislation entails. For those that don't know, the Supply Chain Act comes into force at the beginning of 2023 and affects companies with at least 3,000 employees. Global organizations with complex supply chains are therefore those that are the most affected. And from 2024, companies that have 1,000 employees will also be affected. So it's moving downstream very quickly, not just impacting those enterprise organizations, but also will impact smaller organizations as well. Leading into trend number 2 on our list, supplier diversity. One of the many desired outcomes of enhanced supply chain transparency and tier visibility is, in fact, to increase supplier diversity. And this was a trend Kodiak Hub identified in 21 and will remain a trending issue in 2022, as we can see. Taken from the 2022 CPO Compass survey by procurement leaders, it was reported that almost 4/5 of CPOs indicate that they will likely seek to improve supplier diversity and inclusion by tracking their expenditure with Tier 2 diverse suppliers in 2022, while 62% plan to revise supplier selection criteria to enable more diverse enterprises to win business. The majority of procurement teams Kodiak Hub has the opportunity to speak with on a daily basis are referencing supplier diversity as a main focus area for ESG reporting. As per our evaluation and the conversations that we're having, Kodiak Hub believes that this is primarily a trend being driven by multinational companies in North America and the UK. As we know, inclusive spend starts with better visibility into which suppliers are in fact diverse, and that all starts with better classification and better supplier information management. We'll demonstrate in a few minutes how our solution and other SRM solutions can be able to help you to simply address this trend. But first, let's address what supplier diversity is and also why it matters in your procurement practices. By definition, a supplier that is diverse is a business owned or operated by an individual or group that is part of a traditionally underrepresented or underdeserved group. Some common examples of diverse suppliers would be SBEs, small business enterprises, minority-owned business enterprises, and or women-owned enterprises. And there has also then been veteran and other LGBTQ QT aspects added to this definition over time as well. As we see, of course, procurements within the executive positions in sourcing and supply chain roles have been predominantly dominated by male. Like in that case, of course, there's been a lacking diversity within these roles. This isn't a positive attribute, as we all know, but this is also a particular issue that's been brought to light quite a lot during the last 10 to 15 years. And it's getting better, of course. But the executive diversity in procurement, sourcing, and supply chain might, of course, mirror some of the things that has been issues within the broader supply chain. The same shift needs to be mirrored at scale by reviewing diversity of existing supplier bases and enrolling initiatives to improve upon supplier diversity. It's all about creating shared value and economic impact. Changes within spend. Inclusive spend and supplier diversity benefits underrepresented businesses, but it also will uplift communities. It's not just about being a champion of change, it's about being a champion of communities, where those businesses that are located there as diverse suppliers are able to create jobs, increase wages, and then also create tax revenue. Moving into trend number 3 on our list, enhanced third-party due diligence and market intelligence. Kodiak Hub has seen an increased number of inquiries during the last year to better enhance supplier due diligence via instant third-party insights. And we all know this, the age of data and information is here. It's significantly contributing to the availability of third-party risk insights. And these insights can help procurement and sourcing teams to engage or not engage with suppliers based upon their existing risk profile. When it comes to enhanced due diligence via third-party intelligence, it's not just about making sure that you have information at hand, of course, but that you have accurate and relevant information at hand. Kodiak Hub ourselves provides social, geopolitical, environmental, media, and financial risk insights to our users. These insights are natively integrated in the user interface in Supplier Scorecards, giving our users a 360 view of third-party due diligence data that is all in one place. Some solution providers are making names for themselves in the market today, making the availability of information and market intelligence their primary value proposition. Looking at this market map, courtesy of DPW and Limited, and then also TNW, we see vendors such as Barreau, Kraft, Owlin, who have significant upswings in their notoriety and adoption during the past 2 years as procurement teams are starved for relevant insights and knowledge about their suppliers. Megatrends, including globalization, will only continue to color the complexity of global supply chain networks, and therefore, third-party due diligence and market intelligence will continue to be a trend in procurement during 2022 and beyond. Enhanced availability to data and information can also increase one's ability to address trend number 4 on our list, which is supplier discovery and alternate supply. Modern solutions for supplier discovery are leveraging AI automation to help you, people in your position, of course, find and select suppliers fast. So emerging solutions like Scoutbee, Tealbook, SourceMap, and others offer discovery functionality that allow users to predefine their criteria for search based upon various supplier attributes, utilizing advanced database technology that you probably have experience within, Google and alike, but of course allowing you to filter and target the scope of your search. This is giving procurement and sourcing professionals access to the same kind of search tooling sales and marketing professionals like myself have had for years in order to prospect new leads, target campaigns, but also instead of finding leads in this type of technology, procurement can take advantage to find new suppliers. The pandemic, of course, has highlighted the fragility of a global supply chain where there is an over-reliance on a single source supply. Agile procurement and the ability to quickly find latent suppliers who fulfill an alternate supply is important for you guys to be able to manage risk. And of course, then have mechanisms to ensure that suppliers won't impact your own business's continuity. The ability to keep inactive but approved suppliers on file is always beneficial when your procurement organization needs to find alternate supply sources fast. This kind of supplier registry functionality comes standard in most supplier management solutions, including Kodiak Hub. And I'll display this in a moment, how you're able to utilize our solution for this type of information management as well. Moving on then to trend number 5 on the list, supplier performance management, and more specifically, supplier performance management technology. This was a point on our list of trends for 2021, and it seems to remain a key area of focus for procurement teams in 2022 as well. As we see in the graphic on screen from the 2022 Procurement Leaders Compass survey, it's seen that supplier performance management tops the list of data and technology solutions that CPOs plan to invest in during 2022. It's really no wonder, of course. Supplier performance management is tough. It can be time consuming. Data sources can be unreliable and spread out. Evaluations can be really difficult to distribute and gather. And solutions for tracking, visualizing, and manage supplier performance, KPIs, primarily reside within, well, spreadsheets. At the same time, we all know that supplier performance is a great indicator of overall supply chain performance, and therefore an incredibly important area for procurement teams to follow up on. Many broader S2P suites offer supplier performance management and evaluation capabilities. At the same time, though, the emergence of best-of-breed solutions within supplier performance management will likely help this trend to really take shape during 2022. I'd like to stop here and switch over to the Kodiak Hub solution for a moment in order to demonstrate how modern solutions for supplier management can help you to tackle some of these trends and challenges that you're likely to face in 2022 and beyond. I want to make sure to give you a brief introduction and also a holistic view of the solution during the demonstration, but also discuss some of the capabilities of SRM technology that can help with tier mapping and transparency, supplier diversity, third-party due diligence, agile procurement processes, as well as then also supplier performance management. Let me just switch my screen here then, and I will be able to visualize the solution, which I hope that everybody's able to now see. Entering into the solution, then we're able to see our suppliers around the globe. Here indicated to us very quickly is then a macro risk of particular countries where we have suppliers both located and not located. Those countries which are illuminated give us a macro risk view of where suppliers that we have located are, and we can be able to expand upon views, hover over suppliers, see supplier ratings. We can also utilize the different data properties of the solution, which of course are then filters or segments to quickly find groupings of suppliers. Some of those things could be, based upon category or spend level, or if they are strategic or bottleneck. The typifications and classifications are really malleable and up to the user, of course, to be able to choose in that case how they want to be able to segment this particular supplier base. And you can have these functionalities around the solution. One of the places, of course, that you can see this most prominently then in the list view, where you can be able to quickly find, bottom performing suppliers or top performing suppliers as you need to. You can also be able to segment on aspects such as classifications for diversity if you want to. So you can quickly pull forward lists of diverse suppliers and keep this type of data on file. We'll talk about in a moment how you gather back this type of data in a super streamlined manner as well. But this is just giving you a quick view how you can be able to utilize data at hand to quickly find particular suppliers. Again, another way for you to be able to quickly find not active or active, approved or unapproved suppliers, ways that you can be able to segment your data and be able to quickly pull forward that data as you want to in the solution. We'll jump into a supplier scorecard here just to be able to give you a quick view of some of the third-party insights that are driving third-party due diligence in our solution. This is really a control hub for a supplier. So in the supplier scorecard, there's basic information management, there's note-taking capabilities, so you can leave messages to yourself or to others. So if you're going to change the approval level or flagging level of a supplier and want to be able to say so to another user, then you can be able to do so, and then everything will be left on file with a particular audit trail as well. The third-party insights that we're providing here that are driving due diligence, of course, are financial bits, credit scores, which are fed in directly into our interface, inherently in our interface based upon a VAT or company registration number, media insights, which you can be able to see both positive but also negative news media, which you can jump into as you need to better understand a particular supplier, what's going on in the media, different types of verified media as well. That keeps you in the loop of different things that are happening. You can directly read these articles if you would like to from our solution as well. The last bits then is also a search engine for sanctions and PEP, which you can be able to query companies and get up different results about that overall general company, different types of linked sources as to adverse media and other types of media that might be interesting, linked subsidiaries, and even then linked individuals, as we showed within that slide. You can be able to get up expanded views of politically exposed persons and alike. If we then shift back up here, we're able to see the last bit of the third-party insights, which is the macro risk rating, which we saw on the map view, but we're able to also see in the scorecard, so you can get different levels of granularity and better understand how a particular country looks in the different areas, both social, environmental, but also geopolitical and financial aspects. And you can dive even deeper to better understand the individual indices of a single country. So this is a contextual risk rating. If you're looking at the supplier of a single supplier's kind of performance or their governance, their overall compliance levels, that's where you're looking at the performance rating and the sustainability and governance rating then in that case, just to better understand a little bit how this solution can help to drive, for example, supplier diversity or other aspects that are important to compliance, such as health and safety, labor rights, environmental management, so forth and so on. You can be able to utilize the solution to streamline onboarding or self-assessment upon responses based upon the KPIs that you want to gauge. You're able to then get back responses that are rated. And you can also then, of course, gather back documentation, whether that's, compliance-based documentation, commercial-based documentation, you name it, you're able to gather it back, have those things with expiry dates so you get notifications as well on what's going on. The performance bits, which I wanted to be able to show off before I jump into one last element of the solution, is then also to show you off the performance rating. This is where you're able to streamline your evaluations. We know that evaluations can be complex. That's why we've simplified the way that you can utilize the solution to predefine your KPIs, issue then these evaluations in robust ways so you can gather back from multiple stakeholders for a single supplier or project, and you can dive even deeper into each of these individual areas as you would like to. So when you start getting back some historical data on these things, you can start being able to track and view performance over time. Is a supplier getting better? Are they getting worse in the different areas and the KPIs that we find to be important? When it comes to reporting back from the supplier, which of course is going to be an increasing driver, as you guys all identified, sustainability, one of those macro trends that's hanging around and not going anywhere. We're able to then help our customers to address some of those aspects related to ESG, related to CSR, one of these pillars that we mentioned, supplier diversity as well, within the self-assessment and onboarding capabilities. So in assessments, this is a place for you to build templates for your self-assessments, your audits, or your performance evaluations, run campaigns, and get back reports. I'm not going to be able to demonstrate the full capabilities of the solution, but just quickly to show off what a draft template looks like and what the view is for a supplier. This is your view here to be able to draft a template. So you can be able to choose the scope, the type of the supplier, to segment that particular template. You can choose the rating areas, as many or as few as you would like to, of these 14 different standardized areas. You can choose the data check. And here then we can choose for the supplier to report back in, for example, on aspects like, are they a diverse supplier? And if so, what type of supplier? And also then different types of supplier ID. So we can keep an eye on tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers as well. The other aspects then are in the content area where you're able to build a landing page, and you can be able to then also start to determine what are the different types of questions you want to ask to your suppliers. You've already identified these things in the back end of the solution. So in the front end, when you're building, it's as simple as dragging and dropping these questions in. There's conditional capabilities, of course, so you can be able to add relationships between the questions, respond yes, then show a follow-up of a question, no, show another follow-up of a question, so forth and so on. And you're then able to issue these to your suppliers via email, taking away any type of, kind of barriers for them to be able to engage, able to personalize to the person that's it's sending out to, and giving them a link or a button directly to this actual assessment so they can enter in. The preview for the supplier themselves, they receive it in their email, they get this assessment, they're able to start that particular assessment where then they can be able to start reporting in, managing again supplier information to help you guys to map your tiers, also to be able to stay on top of diversity. So here then a supplier can be able to determine what type of diverse supplier they are, if they're a diverse supplier. If they already have data populated in the solution, it's pre-populated for them so they can be able to confirm or update. And as they go through the assessment, they are able to see along the way when documents are needed, when expiry dates are needed on those documents, and also how much of the particular assessment or onboarding activity they've completed so that when they submit, they know that they've completed everything. On the front end, you're able to start getting the, of course, reports back so you can quickly spot risk suppliers. You can also see the deep dive in that information within the scorecards as well. Documentation that they've shared with you is then reposited as well. Again, all about streamlining these different drivers to be able to ensure that you're able to build more transparency and visibility, cover then these aspects related to diversity, cover these aspects also related to performance management and third-party risk as well. So that was just a whirlwind little tour. I don't think that we have much more time. Otherwise, we'll go way too far over time for today's session. I'm going to get back into the presentation that I have. And if you're interested in getting a deeper demonstration, we're welcome to give that to you guys when you want so. So you could just feel free to reach out to myself or someone in our team or directly request a demonstration on our website as well. Kodiak, our hub ourselves, as we see, is providing a best of breed solution. And we're in the space of supplier management. We're covering supplier information management, relationship management, performance management, risk, compliance, and collaboration. And as I said, best of breed solutions will drive some of these trends forward. And we can be able to ensure that this is being driven forward based upon our trend number 6, which is what I like to call the Procure Tech Trifecta. It's been ringing in our ears for the past 5 years, but the best of breed approach for building Procure Tech ecosystems is one that we see continuing to make an impact in 2022 and also beyond. From the same CPO Compass survey that we quoted earlier, it was found that 59% of procurement functions, 59% of CPOs reported back that they are planning on taking a best of breed approach within technology adoption in 2022. This is real no surprise, as there are some obvious driving forces behind the best of breed approach to procurement technology. This is what I like to call the Procure Tech Trifecta. The 3 points on the Procure Tech Trifecta are pretty simple, but rather powerful. Us, point, niche, or best of breed solutions like Kodiak Hub are maturing, right? Our modern technology is becoming more mature, and within our capabilities, they're continuing to grow. Secondly, VC capital is flowing into procurement technology category, and this is aiding emerging technology and vendors to grow their businesses and their solution capabilities. We see that the growth rate, in fact, of procurement software from 2020 to 2021 in EMEA was 186%. This was second only to cybersecurity. That's according to Deal Room and Speed Invest. The last leg of the trifecta, well, you. Large and enterprise procurement practitioners are fed up with their outdated legacy and homegrown solutions, managing processes and projects in Excel and SharePoint. And when it comes to these all-in-one procurement solutions, procurement professionals are starting to realize that they don't really have all you want. Subsequently, procurement teams are starting to turn towards growth and startup ventures who are often providing best of breed or point solutions to fill the gaps and create more agile procurement ecosystems. Moving on to trend number 7, next gen talent and teams. This is one that lies close to my heart. Of course, those millennials or Generation Y, as they're known as, who everyone has loved to poke fun at during the last 10 years. Well, they're starting to fill prominent line and global management positions in your procurement teams. These next-gen stakeholders have technology and sustainability running through their veins, but they're also not really so easy to keep tied down in one place, as we've seen. Procurement is currently in a transitional phase, really. We're entering into the age of the specialist. This is particularly true in procurement functions focused on digital, risk management, and sustainability. 2022 will bring us functional remodeling, where networks of specialists and supporting roles will work parallel, directing traditional procurement staff driven by broader initiatives and insights. In the CPO Compass survey, it was found that nearly half of the respondents plan on creating new roles and responsibilities, and we see some of those new roles and responsibilities here as the emerging specialist roles as well as the emerging enablement roles, again being reinforced by the macro trends that are, of course, globalization as well as then technology and sustainability, as you guys astutely have kind of already identified. Obviously, the past 2 years have been a pretty odd time to build and motivate teams. Teams have had to locate and hire talent, with onboarding primarily taking place in a digital context. I mean, this hybrid way of working could very well persist in 2022. It's already happening, really. Much of Europe has begun to reinstate COVID restrictions and work from home protocols. I'd like to pause here and ask 2 quick questions on how you believe that hybrid work has in fact impacted your team. The first question is, has hybrid work been bad for your culture? We'll stop sharing the screen here and give everybody then a little bit of time here to respond back on this particular question. Has hybrid work been bad for culture? What does everyone think? Yes? No? Or have you not seen any noticeable effect? Give about 5 more seconds. So it's about a tie between no noticeable effect and yes. No is the prevailing answer. The second question that I want to follow up there with is, has hybrid work in your organization been good for productivity? Yes, no, or there is no noticeable difference within productivity. Give about 10 more seconds to make sure that everybody's able to respond. So as it seems, it's a little split here. 50% of those polled said that no, there was no effect on culture. Or I'm sorry, it hasn't been bad for culture to work in a hybrid manner. Whereas 27% said yes, and 22% said that there was no noticeable effect on culture. And then for the question about productivity, yes, it has been good for productivity, it seems. Only 22% said no, and there was 31% that said that there was no noticeable effect on productivity in their organization. I'm going to share my screen again to get back into the presentation here, which I hope that everybody is able to see again. This is rather interesting because this was halfway in line with the statistics that are out there in the Ethernet, and halfway not. It was found By work reworked, the majority of leaders have found these past years of working from home as something that has boosted productivity, as you guys also agreed, but has had a negative impact, in fact, on team culture. Working from home and digital culture may not be a huge deal for younger talent, of course, as there is a certain level of comfort with interaction in digital contexts. At the same time, solely digital experiences, as we know, can hinder free-flowing group conversation, collaboration, and of course the extra five, those sometimes very valuable minutes following the adjournment of a meeting, on the way out of the meeting room, or on the walk to the coffee machine, right? These may seem minute, but these can be vital opportunities for passing on knowledge and experience from the procurement practitioners who have been at the job a whole lot longer than your next gen talent. While next gen stakeholders may have more inherent technical and analysis skills, your procurement team veterans are most likely very well versed in interpersonal skills, from traditional category management, supplier management, tendering, negotiation, and supplier development. This is simply the new normal, and working in hybrid formats will create new types of teams, but knowledge sharing is equally as important. We're evolving in our teams from generalists to specialists, and learning to create knowledge sharing opportunities in this digital context is something that you're going to have to welcome with a younger workforce and generation. It's a brave new world, and that calls for a fresh new beginning, which is leading into trend number 8, as we're going to have to try and speed up here a bit. Improved mobility. Megatrends such as data, technology, and of course, hybrid workforces, as well as Industry 4.0, will increase the need for mobility in procurement teams and solutions. We have computers in the palm of our hands, so why wouldn't we carry around procurement insights in the palm of our hands? The application of our personal lives will continue to spill over into our business solutions in a very similar fashion. A perfect example of this is 2 innovations that have been birthed in the past 2 years at Kodiak Hub, rooted deeply within customer demands for increased mobility. In 2020, Kodiak Hub launched a mobile application for viewer users called InView, which gives access to supplier lists, scorecards, notes, data, information, and documentation, all from the palm of a user's hand. In 2021, we relaunched the on-site audit app in an iOS format, mobile format, excuse me. This was previously only compatible with iPad or desktop, but out of request for increased mobility during on-site visits, we relaunched in mobile as well. And we've seen a nearly 60% upswing in usage of applications since relaunching in mobile. As procurement and sourcing becomes increasingly hybrid and self-serving, you can bet on solutions to follow suit with increasing mobile features. For supplier-facing technologies, this will also likely increase engagement of your suppliers, making experiences more mobile-friendly, putting things in the palm of people's hands. On to trend number 9 on our list, integrated ecosystems. In 2019, 78% of procurement leaders responded to a PwC survey that they plan on investing in at least 3 digital procurement solutions between 2020 and 2022. If this is true, 2020 and 2021 have been 2 years of great selection, implementation, and adoption of procurement solutions. This will continue to persist in 2022 as we see that the market cap for procurement technology continues to grow. As the maturity in procurement teams continues to grow and more solutions are adopted, it's only a matter of time until the focus shifts from adoption to integration. Modern technology is built with integration and cross-application capabilities in mind, which will help to aid this evolution of more integrated ecosystems. Open API data architectures with easily integratable REST APIs have become the standard for modern solutions. So look for this to be a trend during 2022. On to trend number 10, automation arrives for real. A whopping majority, 83% of procurement pros, in fact, responded to the 2021 CPO study by ProcureCon, WBR Insights, and GEP that less than 50% of their procurement processes are automated. As automation technology continues to mature and procurement technology budgets grow, it's possible that we will see a shift towards more automated procurement processes. As seen in the 2021 Deloitte CPO survey, over 50% of high-performing procurement teams and over 40% of teams labeled as other had already begun testing the waters with robotic process automation, or RPA, during the last year. If the trend continues in 2022, the application of automated workflows and processes will be something that we could continue to see. If procurement teams are willing to allow tech, of course, to guide and simplify their processes, the opportunities for automation are really abundant. Simply put, it's hard to transform and automate bad procurement processes. Change and the willingness to change is central to automation. The third edition of PwC's 2020 to 2021 Digital Procurement Survey found that among the key success factors for digital transformation projects, adapting procurement processes to the chosen solution, and investing heavily in change management were the two identified major factors, while the choice of technology or integrator was in fact less important. Simply put, the willingness to change will allow you to automate your procurement processes. The technology is really just a means to get there. On to trend number 11, and our second to last. North America will follow in Europe's green footsteps. ESG, CSR, these are areas of massive focus within the European Union and even the broader EMEA markets. This is, mirrored in the enforcement of things like the EU Taxonomy. The EU Taxonomy, for those that don't know, I'm sure that most in attendance do, is a classification system establishing a list of environmentally sustainable activities. Taxonomy is really one of the many mechanisms that the EU has put into place to successfully fulfill their promises made in the Green Deal and meet energy targets set in 2030 and 2050. The mega trend that is sustainability is greatly reflected in European legislation, as well as corporate and consumer practices, as we spoke about during the first trends during this webinar. Historically, the EU has passed legislative frameworks that are later mirrored in North America, especially in the United States. If we look at GDPR as a concrete example, the General Data Protection Regulation, which went into effect in May of 2018, which broadly protects the processing integrity of individuals' personal data. Since Canadian and US legislation has begun to be drafted, presented, and in a few cases passed. Look for 2022, in that case, to be a shift that happens in a similar fashion with a greener economy in North America, which will, of course, subsequently impact global procurement practices. Moving on to the last but not least on our list of procurement trends in 2022. And I really appreciate everybody that's been sticking with us here as we are well over time, but I know that it's packed with a lot of information and insights here, so I hope that it's worth it. The COVID ripple effect. As stated earlier in this webinar, 66% of CPOs were surveyed in Procurement Leaders CPO Compass survey that they expect supply chain volatility in 2022. This will force procurement teams to focus on mechanisms to enhance supply chain resilience. The COVID ripple effect will cause three big waves during 2022. The first, pricing issues and inflation. They will continue. It's pretty obvious. We've heard from a lot of people out there that instability in the market, especially when sourcing raw materials, is something that has been a real issue, and this will likely continue in 2022. On the number two wave, of course, localization of supply chains. This was a trend in 2021 that we spotted, and it's going to continue in 2022. As a mechanism to enhance resilience, a lot of procurement teams will look to allocate spend to more local supplier networks. And amongst this, of course, is an increase in risk management, due diligence, and of course, eliminating single sourcing as well. The last ripple effect will also then be inventory and storage, another mechanism for resilience, really, right? Bunkering down for winter, as I like to say. After understanding the importance of business continuity and the negative impact of supply shortages, procurement and sourcing supply chain teams really are going to focus on ensuring that they have inventory, warehousing capacities, and reserve supplies during 2022 to make sure that the same mistakes don't hit them hard. So there you have it. The procurement trends of 2022, a fresh new beginning. And I hope that today's session was able to bring you some valuable insights and get your wheels turning for new areas of focus during 2022.